In the 172nd year, Demetrius the king assembled his forces and marched into Media to secure help, so that he could make war against Trypho. When Arsaces the king of Persia and Media heard that Demetrius had invaded his territory, he sent one of his commanders to take him alive. And he went and defeated the army of Demetrius, and seized him, and took him to Arsaces, who put him under guard. The land had rest all the days of Simon. He sought the good of his nation. His rule was pleasing to them, as was the honor shown him all his days. To crown all his honors, he took Joppa for a harbor, and opened a way to the isles of the sea. He extended the borders of his nation, and gained full control of the country. He gathered a host of captives. He ruled over Gazara and Bethsur and the citadel, and he removed its uncleanness from it, and there was none to oppose him. They tilled their land in peace. The ground gave its increase, and the trees of the plains their fruit. Old men sat in the streets. They all talked together of good things. And the youths donned the glories and garments of war. He supplied the cities with food, and furnished them with the means of offense, till his renown spread to the ends of the earth. He established peace in the land, and Israel rejoiced with great joy. Each man sat under his vine and his fig tree, and there was none to make them afraid. No one was left in the land to fight them, and the kings were crushed in those days. He strengthened all the humble of his people. He sought out the law, and did away with every lawless and wicked man. He made the sanctuary glorious, and added to the vessels of the sanctuary. It was heard in Rome, and as far away as Sparta, that Jonathan had died, and they were deeply grieved. When they heard that Simon his brother had become high priest in his place, and that he was ruling over the country and the cities in it, they wrote to him on bronze tablets to renew with him the friendship and alliance which they had established with Judas and Jonathan his brothers. And these were read before the assembly in Jerusalem. This is a copy of the letter which the Spartans sent. The rulers and the city of the Spartans to Simon the high priest, and to the elders and the priests and the rest of the Jewish people, our brethren, greeting. The envoys who were sent to our people have told us about your glory and honor, and we rejoiced at their coming. And what they said we have recorded in our public decrees as follows. Numenius, the son of Antiochus, and Antipater, the son of Jason, envoys of the Jews, have come to us to renew their friendship with us. It has pleased our people to receive these men with honor, and to put a copy of their words in the public archives, so that the people of the Spartans may have a record of them. And they have sent a copy of this to Simon the high priest. After this, Simon sent Numenius to Rome with a large gold shield weighing 1,000 minas, to confirm the alliance with the Romans. When the people heard these things, they said, How shall we thank Simon and his sons? For he and his brothers and the house of his father have stood firm. They have fought and repulsed Israel's enemies and established its freedom. So they made a record of bronze tablets and put it upon pillars on Mount Zion. This is a copy of what they wrote. On the 18th day of Elul, in the 172nd year, which is the 3rd year of Simon, the great high priest, in Arsamael, in the great assembly of the priests and the people and the rulers of the nation and the elders of the country, the following was proclaimed to us. Since wars often occurred in the country, Simon the son of Mattathias, a priest of the sons of Joarib, and his brothers, exposed themselves to danger and resisted the enemies of their nation, in order that their sanctuary and the law might be preserved. And they brought great glory to their nation. Jonathan rallied the nation, and became their high priest, and was gathered to his people. And when their enemies decided to invade their country, and lay hands on their sanctuary, then Simon rose up and fought for his nation. He spent great sums of his own money. He armed the men of his nation's forces, and paid them wages. He fortified the cities of Judea, and Bethsur, on the borders of Judea, where formerly the arms of the enemy had been stored, and he placed there a garrison of Jews. He also fortified Joppa, which is by the sea, and Gazara, which is on the borders of Azotus, where the enemy formerly dwelt. He settled Jews there, and provided in those cities whatever was necessary for their restoration. The people saw Simon's faithfulness, and the glory which he had resolved to win for this nation. And they made him their leader and high priest, because he had done all these things, and because of the justice and loyalty which he had maintained toward his nation. He sought in every way to exalt his people, and in his days things prospered in his hands, so that the Gentiles were put out of the country, as were also the men of the city of David in Jerusalem, who had built themselves a citadel from which they used to sally forth and defile the environs of the sanctuary and do great damage to its purity. He settled Jews in it and fortified it for the safety of the country and of the city, and built the walls of Jerusalem higher. In view of these things, King Demetrius confirmed him in the high priesthood, and he made him one of the king's friends and paid him high honors. For he had heard that the Jews were addressed by the Romans as friends and allies and brethren, and that the Romans had received the envoys of Simon with honor. And the Jews and their priests decided that Simon should be their leader and high priest forever, until a trustworthy prophet should arise, and that he should be governor over them, and that he should take charge of the sanctuary and appoint men over its tasks, and over the country and the weapons and the strongholds, and that he should take charge of the sanctuary, and that he should be obeyed by all, and that all contracts in the country should be written in his name, and that he should be clothed in purple and wear gold. And none of the people or priests shall be permitted to nullify any of these decisions, or to oppose what he says, or to convene an assembly in the country without his permission, or to be clothed in purple or put on a gold buckle. Whoever acts contrary to these decisions or nullifies any of them shall be liable to punishment. And all the people agreed to grant Simon the right to act in accord with these decisions. So Simon accepted and agreed to be high priest, to be commander and ethnarch of the Jews, and priests, and to be protector of them all. And they gave orders to inscribe this decree upon bronze tablets, to put them up in a conspicuous place in the precincts of the sanctuary, and to deposit copies of them in the treasury, so that Simon and his sons might have them. And after him, Nathan rose up to prophesy in the days of David. As the fat is selected from the peace offering, so David was selected from the sons of Israel. He played with lions as with young goats, and with bears as with the lambs of the flock. In his youth did he not kill a giant and take away reproach from the people, when he lifted his hand with a stone in the sling, and struck down the boasting of Goliath. For he appealed to the Lord the Most High, and he gave him strength in his right hand, to slay a man mighty in war, to exalt the power of his people. So they glorified him for his 10,000s, and praised him for the blessings of the Lord, when the glorious diadem was bestowed upon him. For he wiped out his enemies on every side, and annihilated his adversaries, the Philistines. He crushed their power even to this day. In all that he did he gave thanks to the Holy One, the Most High, with ascriptions of glory. He sang praise with all his heart, and he loved his Maker. He placed singers before the altar, to make sweet melody with their voices. He gave beauty to the feasts, and arranged their times throughout the year, while he praised God's holy name, and the sanctuary resounded from early morning. The Lord took away his sins and exalted his power forever. He gave him the covenant of kings and a throne of glory in Israel. After him rose up a wise son, who fared amply because of him. Solomon reigned in days of peace, and God gave him rest on every side, that he might build a house for his name, and prepare a sanctuary to stand forever. How wise you became in your youth! You overflowed like a river with understanding. Your soul covered the earth, and you filled it with parables and riddles. Your name reached to far-off islands, and you were loved for your peace, for your songs and proverbs and parables, and for your interpretations. The countries marveled at you. In the name of the Lord God, who is called the God of Israel, you gathered gold like tin, and amassed silver like lead. But you laid your loins beside women, and through your body you were brought into subjection. You put stain upon your honor. You defiled your posterity, so that you brought wrath upon your children, and they were grieved at your folly. So that the sovereignty was divided, and a disobedient kingdom arose out of Ephraim. But the Lord will never give up his mercy, nor cause any of his works to perish. He will never blot out the descendants of his chosen one, nor destroy the posterity of him who loved him. So he gave a remnant to Jacob, and to David a root of his stock. Solomon rested with his fathers and left behind him one of his sons, ample in folly and lacking in understanding, Rehoboam, whose policy caused the people to revolt. Also Jeroboam the son of Nebat, who caused Israel to sin and gave to Ephraim a sinful way. Their sins became exceedingly many, so as to remove them from their land, for they sought out every sort of wickedness, till vengeance came upon them. Then the prophet Elijah arose like a fire, and his word burned like a torch. He brought a famine upon them, and by his zeal he made them few in number. By the word of the Lord he shut up the heavens, and also 3 times brought down fire. How glorious you were, O Elijah, in your wondrous deeds! And who has the right to boast which you have? You who raised a corpse from death and from Hades, by the word of the Most High, who brought kings down to destruction, and famous men from their beds, and easily destroyed their dominion, who heard rebuke at Sinai, and judgments of vengeance at Horeb, who anointed the kings to inflict retribution, and prophets to succeed you. You who were taken up by a whirlwind of fire, in a chariot with horses of fire, you who are ready at the appointed time, it is written, to calm the wrath of God before it breaks out in fury, to turn the heart of the father to the son, and to restore the tribes of Jacob. Blessed are those who saw you, and those who have fallen asleep in your love. For we also shall surely live, but our name after death will not be such. Then I saw another mighty angel coming down from heaven, wrapped in a cloud, with a rainbow over his head, and his face was like the sun, and his legs like pillars of fire. He had a little scroll open in his hand, and he set his right foot on the sea, and his left foot on the land, and called out with a loud voice, like a lion roaring. When he called out, the 7 thunders sounded, and when the 7 thunders had sounded, I was about to write, but I heard a voice from heaven saying, Seal up what the 7 thunders have said, and do not write it down. And the angel whom I saw standing on the sea and land lifted up his right hand to heaven, and swore by him who lives forever and ever, who created heaven, and what is in it, the earth, and what is in it, and the sea, and what is in it, that there should be no more delay, but that in the days of the trumpet, call to be sounded by the 7th angel, the mystery of God, as he announced to his servants, the prophets, should be fulfilled. Then the voice which I had heard from heaven spoke to me again, saying, Go, take the scroll which is open in the hand of the angel who is standing on the sea and on the land. So I went to the angel and told him to give me the little scroll, and he said to me, Take it and eat it. It will be bitter in your stomach, but sweet as honey in your mouth. And I took the little scroll from the hand of the angel and ate it. It was sweet as honey in my mouth, but when I had eaten it, my stomach was made bitter. And I was told, You must again prophesy about many peoples and nations and tongues and kings. In the description of the idyllic peace that dawned upon the Jews in the time of Simon Maccabeus, it says, Each man sat under his vine and his fig tree, and there was none to make them afraid. This image goes back to Solomon's golden age, and is also used by Sirach to describe the peace Solomon is given. God gave him rest on every side. The prophets then foretell the future restoration of Israel, when the Messiah comes, as ushering in an era when everyone can sit in peace under their vine and fig tree. Peace is a gift from God, and for Israel, lasting peace will come only with the Messiah. This is perhaps why St. John shows us at the outset of his Gospel, Jesus encountering Nathanael, with a reference to him sitting under his fig tree. Throughout Scripture, peace, shalom, is a gift that God gives, indeed, almost imposes upon the normal state of human affairs, which is one of almost constant conflict. When in Revelation, the angels blow trumpets, or open seals, or throw down bowls, it is not so much that they are causing violent conflict on earth, as they are removing the God-imposed grace of peace in response to growing human sin, thus allowing humanity to reap the full fruit of its own sowing. Do you agree that violence is rooted in sin and that peace is bestowed from above?